Welcome to The Economy Magazine. I'm Benjamin Chong Alfares with the top stories in the global economy. Coming up today, Israel seeks closer trade ties with Latin America, and China struggles to integrate relocated villagers. First, the headlines. Japan's economy has grown at a slower pace than initially thought, questioning the pace of recovery under Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's growth blitz. The world's number 3 economy expanded 0.2% in the quarter to December and 1.5% through 2013. The revised figures may inspire further monetary easing measures to counter a possible slowdown from a sales tax rise next month. But the new figures still mark Japan's best annual performance in 3 years since Abe's growth-oriented policies were introduced. The world's largest high-tech trade fair, CeBIT, officially opened its doors, calling for homogeneous regulations across the European digital market. The lead theme of this year's CeBIT is datability, or the ability to use large volumes of data sustainably and responsibly. Following Edward Snowden's snooping revelations, one of the main topics concerns security. The market for mobile security management products was estimated at $560 million in 2013 and is expected to nearly double in size to $1 billion a year by 2015.
We know that European market still has no homogeneous regulations. There are different regulations by media providers, internet providers, and telecommunication providers. All has to be regulated in a way that investment is possible so we can catch up on the deficits we still have in many areas. I believe the European digital market offers us a good chance to do so.
China's largest stock index plunged to the lowest level in 5 years, and the yuan weakened as an unexpected drop in exports spurred concern the economy is slowing. China's CSI 300 index slid 3.3% to 2,097.79 at close, the lowest level since February 2009. Chinese exports fell 18% in February year-on-year, and the yuan fell as much as 0.5% against the dollar before pairing it dropped to 0.3%. To curb capital inflows, China's central bank weakened the daily reference rate for its currency by the largest percentage in more than a year and a half. The People's Bank of China set the daily reference rate Monday at 6.1312, 0.18% higher than Friday, the largest one-day change since July 2012. Finally, global debt has soared more than 40% to $100 trillion since the onset of the financial crisis. According to the Bank for International Settlements, debt soared as governments borrowed to pull their economies out of recession and companies took advantage of record low interest rates. Debt increased by $30 trillion between 2007 and 2013, while equities declined $3.86 trillion to $53.8 trillion in the same period. The jump in global debt is almost twice the U.S.'s gross domestic product. Israel has long had trade interests in Latin America, but as Israel's economic strategy increasingly leads it beyond the U.S. and the EU, a bounty of new opportunities unfolds. Daniel Roth has the story.
Last week, the Israel-Latin America Chamber of Commerce, which turns 50 this year, held a conference in Tel Aviv to discuss the growth of opportunities for Israeli businesses looking to expand. Though the two regions are geographically remote, the relationship has much room to grow.
Trade-wise, it's a very small percentage, but now in the last 2 or 3 years we have been seeing a huge growth, mainly in services and telecommunication, water treatment, a lot of technology.
The majority of Israeli trade with Latin America is with Brazil, which imports more than $1 billion of Israeli goods and exports around $400 million annually. The conference focused primarily on the contentious issue of trade deregulation, important considering Israel has had agreements with the Mercosur countries since 2007, signed an agreement to loosen regulations with Colombia last summer, and is aiming to sign trade deregulation agreements with Peru and Chile in the near term.
Working with Latin America, it's far, it's costly. So we have always believed, and that has been our motto in the Chamber of Commerce, to facilitate and to impel and to help both trade and investment bilaterally between us and Latin America. Israeli government has finally started to look at Latin America not as an opportunity, but as a strategy.
And Israel's economic strategy has been shifting recently, in part because the relatively closer European Union, a longtime trade partner, limited a 1.5 billion euro loan package in order to restrict funds going to settlements illegal under international law. This has led Israel to look to Latin America and other emerging economies for new trade opportunities.
We're talking about easing investments, protecting them, and so easing them, and also services, which is a very important segment, especially in the Israeli exports. Israel is a very liberalized market. It's a very open market in general, so the Israeli government, usually it's also a policy, does not see threats opening its market.
Israel's move into Latin America is worth watching. Last month, Israel was the first Middle Eastern country to be granted observer status to the Pacific Alliance, made up of Colombia, Peru, Mexico, Costa Rica, and Chile, which have a combined economy of about $2 trillion, representing the 8th largest economy in the world.
And for more on this story, Ossie Gluck, Chief Executive of the Israel Latin America Chamber of Commerce, is here with us today. Ms. Gluck, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me here.
Can you describe some of the changes that have happened in the South America trade alliance, and in terms also of how it affects Israel?
Well, first, you will excuse me, but one small correction. It's not South America, it's Latin America.
Latin America, indeed.
Yes, because we cannot, of course, we have
Forget
Mexico, we have Central America, we have the Caribbean countries as well. If we're talking in changes, I think we can look at several things. First of all, if you look at countries like Brazil and Mexico, they suffered less from the economic crisis than other countries. Brazil, of course, is part of the BRIC countries, which is Brazil, Russia, India, and China. And I think that's why so many people found Brazil as a very interesting place to try and do some trade, because it was in a better state. Coming into Brazil opened up, I think, everybody's eyes to the rest of Latin America. Two of the main problems that I think that I see with Latin America, the barriers are, first of all, there are trade barriers because of high rates of taxes and others. And the other barrier, which I think we look at less, is the barrier of the international business culture barrier, that we don't quite understand what's been happening there. There were changes on both fronts. The Latin American countries are, at least they're saying that they will be opening up their trade barriers, and one of that was last year with the CELA conference of the Latin American and Caribbean states. With the European Union, they actually committed, though not legally, but they committed to open up their trade. But we do see that happening. And I think that the other part of it is that we are starting to understand a little bit better the way of how to do business in Latin America.
And is this one of the reasons why Israel's approach to Latin America has changed, or are those sort of more domestic reasons?
I think that I wouldn't call it change. I think that the approach of Israel to Latin America has evolved, because Israel already signed a free trade agreement with Mexico in the year 2000. So that was the start. Then in 2010, we ratified our agreement with the Mercosur countries. The first country outside of the Latin American continent to have signed an agreement with the Mercosur countries. Argentina ratified it only in 2011. And I think that we're looking at it, and the change that this did, this free trade agreement, there was a 64% rise since we signed that agreement with our trade, with the bilateral trade with these countries. I think that made Israel want to look to further markets in Latin America, especially with the changes that have been happening there.
Is it fair to say that it's gone from just seeking opportunities on a more individual level, company level, to being more of a national strategy? Is that fair to say?
Definitely. Especially in the last year, we've seen all of a sudden ministers traveling to Latin America. President Perez was just with a huge delegation in Mexico. Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu is talking about traveling to Colombia, Peru, and Mexico, the Pacific Alliance countries. So yes, we're definitely seeing it moving into a national strategy.
Okay, well,
for which I'm very happy.
Fantastic. Well, I wish you a lot of luck with all of this. Thank you very much, Ozzy Gluck from the Israel Latin America Chamber of Commerce. Thanks for your contribution.
Very much.
Thank you. China seeks to alleviate poverty and stimulate the economy by relocating millions of rural poor from the countryside to newly built towns. But proper integration continues to be a problem underlying the mass urbanization drive. Here's the story.
Freshly painted apartments in a new city block in southwest China. Its new residents are some of China's poorest people. Farmers and miners from nearby villages have been relocated here as part of a nationwide urbanisation drive aimed at alleviating poverty and boosting the economy. It's a step up from their ramshackle homes in the villages, but many of them are finding it hard to adjust to city life.
The government tricked us into moving here. They twisted their words and lied to us. If you don't listen to their instructions, they'll call the armed forces, the police, and plenty of others to come and deal with us.
Since taking office a year ago, China's President Xi Jinping has pledged to better integrate rural migrants into cities. It's an issue lawmakers face as they meet for China's annual National People's Congress. Projections say 1 billion Chinese will live in cities by 2030, up nearly 300 million from now. But new arrivals are often marginalised due to China's household registration system, which denies them equal access to public services such as healthcare and education. And miners or farmers who are forcibly relocated find themselves cut off from what they've been used to their whole lives.
The house is fine, but if you have a house to live in and can't feed yourself, what's the point?
Zhang Zhongfu and his wife are so worried about food security, they're using the spare room to store rice. They can't afford to buy much because they say promised jobs and training haven't been provided as part of the relocation.
If the government can't provide jobs for us, then I'd prefer to be at my old place and continue coal mining because I get better paid there.
The city of Anshun has only seen the first batch of villagers relocate here from the countryside. There are plenty more on the way, and with them come fears of yet more social problems of China's mass urbanisation.
We move on now to look at the world's newspapers, blogs, and whatnot in Media Watch with Daniel Roth. So Daniel, I understand we're going to have a little bit more Bitcoin.
Yeah, a bit more Bitcoin today.
From Bloomberg, yeah?
From Bloomberg. Last week, Newsweek, AP, Associated Press, found, they think, the founder of Bitcoin, the guy who may have written the code originally, a guy named Dorian Nakamoto. And they chased him there was a press scrum chasing this guy through the streets of LA. And so this guy's privacy was given up by this, and it's still unclear if he is Satoshi Nakamoto, which is the pseudonym, or people think it's the pseudonym for the programmer or group of programmers who invented the virtual currency.
Right.
There's a lot of questions remaining, but because this guy's been thrust into the spotlight, some organizers put together a Bitcoin wallet for him worth $28,000, which, isn't actually that many Bitcoins. It's actually only 44 Bitcoins. But it was a little gesture to say, look, man, if you're Satoshi Nakamoto, here, sorry, because the U.S. government may try to arrest you, because that's the big risk. Being the inventor of Bitcoin is being the inventor of a currency that's considered illegal, basically, by most governments, or was at least in the previous years, and now has been normalized a little bit. And they said, if not, sorry for being chased through the streets of LA, here's $28,000. You can donate it to a charity if you want.
Yeah, well, maybe he can join Edward Snowden in Russia,
Yeah, well, if $28,000 can buy a plane ticket and a hotel room.
Sure can. There you go. For as long as he wants.
Next up, we have this story from about Jimmy Niggles, whose best friend died of skin cancer at the age of 26. He had it on his neck, and so for the last 3 years, Jimmy's been growing a beard, a really beautiful, long,
as we can see right
shiny
now,
beard.
Screen,
yes,
yeah.
I mean this is a beard that I aspire to one day. but I can only dream.
You better start growing it.
The man is going to sell the beard for $1 million, and it's non-negotiable. It's got to be $1 million, minimum, I guess.
Just help our viewers here. Why should someone want to buy that beard for $1 million?
The beard money isn't going to him. It's not going to beard professionals. It's going towards skin cancer research.
Right.
This was obviously a huge blow for this man, and growing the beard became a kind of a symbol of,
clearly, yeah.
And there's lots of different movements like this for cancer research, and this is one of them. And really $1 million can go a long way.
Okay, well, we'll see if a beard really is worth $1 million. But on that note, we're going to have to end. Thank you very much for watching. Please do send us your comments via Twitter, Facebook, and our website. I'm Benjamin Chong-Alvarez. I hope to see you again tomorrow, same time, same place. Or else.